to my home. We're flying up, no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. I feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off of it, moving so phenomenally. You're more like the way we rock it, so don't stop. And under the lights when everything goes, nowhere to hide when I'm getting you close. When we move, well, you already know. So just imagine. Nothing I can see but you when you dance, dance, dance. Feel good, good creeping up on you. So just dance, dance, dance. Come on. All those things I shouldn't do, but you dance, dance, dance. And ain't nobody leaving soon, so keep dancing. I can't stop the feeling. So just dance.
Welcome, everybody. And I don't know if you caught me, that music was just really happening. I want to welcome you to Strong in Six. Awesome to have you all with us. We're going to give it just another minute to let everybody join in, and we're going to get started. We're so excited that you've taken some time to spend an hour with us today and really strengthening your skills with one of the 6 key components of EOS. So a lot of people are going to be joining us today, and it's super exciting to see everything there. And, you know, as you see me peeking down, lots of very much attention to detail and lots of little notes that I've made to myself to make sure that you get the absolute best experience today. So great to see the enthusiasm and the support of for all the events this year. We have some stellar programming planned, and we're so excited to bring it to you. Again, we're so happy that you chose to spend an hour today sharpening your saw, becoming great at the people component. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And I want to just dive right in. Let's dig in right now. And like everything we do here at EOS, we are going to start on time. And most surprisingly, in so many cases with entrepreneurial companies, we are going to end on time. So I am Phil Cooper, and we're going to be spending some time together today focusing on the people component. And for those of you that are familiar with EOS or the entrepreneurial operating system, you know, we have the component today, the people component, one of the 6 components that we're getting strong in. Now, we have 2 different learning tracks for you in the campaign, in the Strong in 6 campaign. And you can join either session or both each week. And the first one is the new to EOS learning track. This is for people that are brand new to EOS, or maybe you've only been doing it for a short period of time, or maybe you have no idea what the heck EOS even is. Now, the familiar with EOS learning track, that's where we are today. This is for those of you that have been around the block a little bit. You know, you've been running on EOS, you've been maybe doing it without an implementer, but you're looking for a quick refresh. And so it is really looking you know, a deeper dive into the components. Again, we encourage you to enjoy any of the sessions, whether it's new or familiar. But we wanted to lay out the differences so that you knew exactly what to expect from today. And so just a little bit more about me. I split my time between Philadelphia and Annapolis. I am an EOS implementer. I had a family-owned pest control business in New Jersey, which we ran for 34 years, built it to the largest in New Jersey, and then exited in 2018. I've grown 2 other businesses. They run by themselves at this point. It's really wonderful to watch them be, but what I get to do and what I love more than anything else in this world is working with companies that are implementing EOS and becoming great at the 6 components. So that's enough about me. A few housekeeping items, and we're going to dive right in. And then we're going to kick it over to Tabitha Sheaver, and she's going to take you through becoming strong in the EOS component, the people component. So first, today's session is being recorded. The recording will be shared today following the event, and it's also going to be available on demand. So throughout the campaign, you can go to eosworldwide.com and you can go out and see the videos. So today is a webinar format, so you're not going to be on camera, but we'd love to hear from you on chat as we have people standing by to give additional resources to you. So just keep that chat busy, really important. The other thing we've got going is Q&A. So there's the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. If you have a specific question that you want to ask, throw it in there. We're going to have a Q&A session at the very end, and we'll be drawing from those questions. So you have chat, you've got Q&A, and we encourage you to use both. The other thing that we want you to do is use the reaction button at the bottom. You know, when you hear something that you really love, throw in the reaction. So keep this moving, keep this interactive. It'll be very, very good. And I just real quickly look at those reactions going up now. I love it. Just absolutely love it. By the way, we're also going to be monitoring that Q&A during the session. So if there's a specific question as Tabitha is going along and you want answered, throw it in there. We may answer it at that moment as we get there. So one final note before, and then I'm going to welcome Tabitha so she can teach you about the people component. Even though we can't see your faces, again, we love to know what resonates, and that just goes back to those reactions. So just make it all happen. Have thumbs up, smiley faces, hearts. We love them all. And with that said, Tabitha, it's over to you. Bring us on.
Fantastic. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Tabitha Sheaver, and I am going to be your facilitator today. And we are going to be talking about the people component and the right people being in the right seats. So my story is that I was thrust into a CEO position because I found out that the CEO and CFO was embezzling at the company that I was at. And so I got promoted into this CEO role, and I had no idea what I was doing. I went and I found the book Traction, implemented it, and we 10x'd our business within 24 months, which was just unheard of. I left there to go start my own change management organization, grew that to about 13 employees, and realized organizations couldn't endure change or accept change when they didn't have good leadership. And so I started teaching more and more EOS until I got to the point that this is what I love so much. I decided I wanted to do it full time. So that's what I do. I'm based in St. Louis, Missouri, and I just do EOS full time now. And so today I want to just share some things that I learned when I was a CEO, and I was doing it just from reading a book, and then some things that I realized and recognized after I became a facilitator and as I work with my teams today. So we're going to hop right into it. And as you know, we are always more objectives driven than agenda driven here at EOS. So the things I want to make sure that you walk away from with today is I want you to understand what you do after the structure piece of the accountability chart. Most of us started out with focus day. We did accountability chart. And then maybe 6 months, a year later, we've never looked at it again, or we've looked at it and gone, what were we thinking 6 months ago or a year ago? So today I want you to really understand that there are some other things you can be doing with that accountability chart after focus day. I also want you to understand what it means to have the right people in the right seats. We throw that around like it's an easy thing, and we know that that's one of the hardest components of EOS. And so we're going to go back, we're going to deep dive into some of those tools like GWC and People Analyzer, maybe that you've forgotten about, you've put them on the back shelf and you haven't gotten them out in a while. So we're just going to do a little refresher there. And then we're going to talk about how can you plan to find the who's, the people that you need to get you to your vision. And so the way we're going to achieve these objectives is by following this agenda. We're going to go back all the way to probably your VB1, VB2, if you guys, depending on how long that's been for you. You learned something called the 5 leadership abilities. And so we're going to touch base on a couple of those. We're going to review the accountability chart. We'll do a quick refresher. Then we'll deep dive into GWC and People Analyzer. And then 555 and Delegate and Elevate, which are 2 people tools that I think are woefully underutilized in EOS. Because again, we just tend to pick and choose a lot of times. And you want to have a holistic system, then you got to be using all of the tools to really get the full benefit and value. So with that, we're going to jump in. And if you recall, when you started this journey, you made a commitment to help break through the ceiling, to be the best that you could be as a leadership team. And so as you come up against that ceiling, as you bump up against the ceiling, the way you break through that barrier is by doing the 5 leadership abilities. So simplifying, delegating, predicting, systematizing, and making sure you have that right structure. Today, we're going to spend a little bit more time in the structure component first, and then we're going to do a little bit of time in the delegate component. But what I think is really cool about EOS is that everything, all the tools in this system are designed to help you do these 5 things. And so maybe you're having overcomplication issues. Hop into some of the simplified tools around the EOS toolbox and EOS process and the process book, right? So this is just a good view of the 5 leadership abilities and how all the tools in EOS line out against these 5 leadership abilities. So we're going to talk about structure first. So if you have not done this already, you fire everybody in your organization. Just kidding. Don't really fire them, but pretend like nobody actually works for your company anymore. And if that was the case and you could build a perfect world, who would be sitting in the key roles that need to be filled in order to make your business a success? We know that there has to be a sales and marketing function. There has to be an operations function. There has to be a finance function. What tends to happen is we take whoever is currently sitting in that seat or in some version of that seat, and we say, well, Jimmy is really good at sales and marketing, and so we're going to give him that seat, but he also needs to be doing the IT work, and he needs to be doing the accounting. And so we kind of create these Franken-monster roles, right? So the first thing is to get really super clear without thinking about who is currently in your organization, what would be the ideal structure? Then you can go back and you can fill those people in, you can train them, you can hire from the outside to make sure that you're getting what you actually need. But that's a really important component of the accountability chart. You also see here that we have an integrator and a visionary. So the integrator is the person who breaks down silos. They keep the trains running on time. They are also the ones who, as you see, everybody reports to because they're guarding the visionary from the rest of the team getting whiplash. So what we see happen quite frequently is that visionaries have all of these great ideas. And so it's like, this week we should do this. And then I go to a conference and next week I should do that. And we want that integrator to say, whoa, whoa, great ideas, visionary. We are on board. We want to support you. But there has to be some order and some structure, and there has to be some clarity and priority setting and project planning and change management, all the stuff that goes with those really great ideas so that you can execute really well. And so you need to have at least these 5 functions in your accountability chart. And then you go and you build out the rest of the accountability chart to reach your vision. And so when we're in a facilitated session, we're generally working about 6 to 12 months out. And if you notice that in addition to just saying what those seats are, we are actually calling out 5 roles or key accountabilities that each one of those seats is responsible for. And so this is something that you can do in 6 to 12 months. You could look at it in a 1 to 2 year time frame or window. And it's really great because it can help you plan for where are we headed? Where are we going to have to make some payroll investments? Perhaps we have to outsource something for a season, right? This will help give you that clarity of what the transition path can look like. And here is, once you've done that structure and you've come up with what it looks like for 6 to 12 months, I really encourage you to start lining what does your structure look like in 3 years. And I call out the roles. And I say this role, this function should be hired when XYZ occurs. So when production is so busy that we have a 3-day turn time is how we know that we need to fill another person in the production seat, for example. So when you start coming up with when this happens, then we'll do this, it becomes a lot easier to know and plan and organize. And it shows people on the team also where there's rooms for them to grow. It shows their career paths and their career trajectory. When we grow the business to a certain size, then we can afford to put other seats on this accountability chart. So I just use the regular accountability chart, and then I'll change the color of the little seat, or put a little box around it and put little notes like, this is 2 years out, this is 3 years out, this happens when we break the $5 million mark, whatever those rules are for you. But there's a ton of benefits to building this, because it really starts giving you a roadmap. So if you've used accountability chart in just your current structure, that's great, but you can really step it up and take it to the next level by doing a future accountability chart as well. The other thing I want to do is I want to go a little bit deeper into accountability chart and about when we kind of come up against some problems with accountability chart. And a lot of what I learned here came from teaching third grade hockey. So I'm a figure skater. I am not a hockey player by any means, but I got asked to help teach hockey. And one of the first things they taught me was that there are actually positions in hockey. I guess I sort of knew this, but I always knew that there was left wing, right wing, there was center, right? And there was left defense and right defense. But I didn't realize that these teammates were supposed to play in zones. So your offense plays the forward, the defense plays the back, and then the right zone plays the right, the center plays the center, and the left plays the left, right? For the most part. Now, when somebody gets out of that position, other people come around and they shore them up, right? They come behind and they support if that zone is left open or empty. But what happens a lot of times, like in third grade hockey, is it looks like this. It's probably called herd ball, right? The puck always gets stuck down in the corner, and every kid runs there and they're all trying to dig out the puck as much as they can. And then what happens is somebody digs the puck out and they pass it. And guess what? There is nobody there to receive the puck. And so we all skate all the way down to the other end of the ice. And then we do the same thing over and over again. And I tell my teams that this is what happens when we don't have a well-defined accountability chart, because everybody, in the name of being kind and friendly and helpful and all of those things that they've been taught to do, they're just trying to be helpful. And what they're doing is they're making everybody exhausted, because we're making everybody have to skate all over the ice. And what we really want to do is we want the person who's on the right defense to go dig the puck out of the corner and then pass it to the person who's in the right wing, so that that person then can go up and score the goal. So if you feel like you're exhausted, it's a lot of times because you're skating all over the place, you're covering for people, and the right people need to be playing the right roles. And so how do you know if people are playing the right roles? First of all, you have to identify exactly what is expected of those players. So if you're the center, I expect you to win the faceoff. I expect you to go create scoring chances and score goals, right? And minimize the turnovers on the play. But if they don't even know what they're supposed to do, then you can't hold them accountable. When they do know what they're supposed to do, so you've created accountability chart, you've created these roles and key accountabilities for folks, then you have to start asking the question, do the players get it? Do they want it? And do they have the capacity to do it? And so a little story about Gets It. Gets It is, are the lights on, right? Do they realize that they're playing hockey? My daughter was very little when she first started playing hockey, and the cutest little thing happened. Her best friend was in goal and on the opposite team. And so my daughter's Elena, and her team scores against her best friend. And my daughter skates down to the end of the ice and hugs Olivia and says, "It's okay, we won't do that anymore." She didn't get it. Like, she didn't get playing the game of hockey. She wanted to just be friends with her friend. And so if you got people who, like, the lights aren't on, they're not going to be able to do the job. There's other scenarios where they have to want it, right? So I was teaching skating lessons, and there was a kid who couldn't skate at all, and he's throwing himself on the ground, throwing temper tantrums, and the dad's like, we're getting in private lessons. And as I was working with the kid, he's like, I don't want to do this. I don't like skating. I don't like being cold. I'm only doing this because my dad is telling me that I have to be here. And so you have some people in your organization that may feel that way. I'm only doing this because I have to make a paycheck, or I'm only doing this because I feel obligated to somebody. And so you really want somebody who wants to do it. They have an urge, desire, a drive to do the job and to do the job well. And you'll see if people take ownership, that's a good sign that they want the role. And this is a piece that gets forgotten because it changes over time. So we may ask when people apply for the job, do you GWC? But when's the last time you've gone back and you've said, it's been 3 years, it's been 5 years, you've been in this seat. Do you still want it? Or do you have other aspirations and goals for yourself? Or has the culture or the company changed so much that there's now maybe another seat that you're more interested in? So making sure that you're stopping and having those conversations. And then the last is the capacity to do it. And so the capacity is all about the skills, the abilities, the resource, the experience. Have you given them the tools that they need in order to do the job well? And if you remember, it has to be either a hell yes or a hell no, because in the middle is just hell. And so we'll talk about that here a little bit more in a second. But if you don't have the right people in the right seats, then it doesn't matter how great your structure is. So how do you know if you have the right people in the right seats? Well, you do the people analyzer. The people analyzer is really simple tool, but it is so profound. And something I didn't know about people analyzers, I used this like a little bit like a weapon when I first got it. I had team members assessing each other, and I was using it as like this team health tool. That is not what it is designed to be. It is designed to be a tool for you to sit down and the leaders to sit down and just say, does this person live our core values? Are they the right people? So we talk about right people and right seats. People is the culture and the values alignment. Seats is the GWC component. And so on this tool, you'll put the people's names down the left side, you'll put the core values across the top, and then you'll put GWC. You need to do a plus minus, or a minus for your values. So they're living those values all of the time, some of the time, or rarely. That's the people part. On the GWC part, you want all yeses. So this is where if somebody says, do you want the role? And the person looks at you with that grimace on their face, that like, yeah, I think, that's a no, okay? So yes, yes, yes is what we are looking for. And it's not a guess. It really is black and white. When you have the right people in the right seats, you will know it. And there's a saying by Jim Collins that he says, as soon as you need to micromanage somebody, you know you've made a hiring mistake. And so if you feel yourself saying, oh, I've got to add 7 more numbers to the scorecard to manage this person, let's start talking about, is it a right person and are they sitting in the right seat? The next tool that we're going to talk about is delegate and elevate. And so delegation, when it is done right, is more about giving another person the ability to step into their unique ability or to grow them. And it should benefit you, but it starts with getting clear on all the things that the people are doing, and then having them sort and organize those into what do they love, what do they hate, right? That's how you start to identify what their unique ability is. And then you can take this delegate and elevate exercise and you can apply it on your accountability chart to say, am I sitting in the right seat? Or is there maybe another seat that's open that I would be better in? Or maybe I'm doing 2 or 3 people's jobs in there and not really just staying focused on mine. And so doing this exercise, you may even find that they're doing things that are unnecessary. I had a teammate that was running a whole bunch of reports, and she put it out on here and she said, I hate running these reports. And we started looking at the accountability chart and we're like, reporting isn't even sit underneath of you. That is something the finance seat should be doing. So it's a really good tool to have everyone on your team do it. And it can be a rock. So if this is something that, you know, people aren't doing, they're not spending the time, set it as a rock and make sure that it gets done. And then challenge them and yourself to move one item from the bottom two quadrants off the list or up to that top space. So if it's something that you don't like doing and you're not good at, can it be delegated to somebody else? Can we just quit doing it altogether? Is there a way to automate it? Ask yourself those questions, and you'll be amazed. I put a job ad out on care.com, and I thought, I am asking for an absolute unicorn. I want somebody who's going to do my laundry, and they're going to be my administrative assistant, and they're going to do all these things. But I had so clearly defined what I wanted that seat to look like that when I went to interview, I was able to say, I don't like doing these parts of my day. And so don't think about it just within your work context. You can think about it within your greater life as well. And this can be a really powerful tool for you as well as for everyone on your team. And then the next tool here is the 5-5-5. And so this is one that if you have a facilitator and you have the book, you like look at this page and you're like, this is the most simple diagram that I've ever seen. What am I supposed to do with this? And it's about having quarterly conversations. And what I find is most of us are not having them. We are running a million miles a minute. We're assuming people are good. We're maybe doing the flyby like, hey, you GWC it? You still good? All right. Right. This is about stopping and saying at least once a quarter, let's talk about the core values and how you fit and how you bring those values to life in our organization. Let's talk about your rocks and let's show how their contribution matters. You can tie these back to that 10-year target. Hey, you're helping us move the organization forward. And then you can talk about their roles and ask them questions like, are the expectations clear? Do they understand? Can they still meet those expectations? And do you still want to be doing this role? And so one of my soapbox items, just something I'm really crazy passionate about, is I had a teammate that encouraged me or asked me to do a project for him. And he said, I need you to build me a 2x2 box. So I went off and I built a 2x2 box, and I came back and I said, here you go, 2x2 box. And I had just used pine wood and I had just nailed it together. And, you know, here's your 2x2 box. What are you using this for? And he said, oh yeah, I actually wanted it to be white and I wanted the edges to be mitered. And I'm like, well, I could have never met that expectation because you didn't tell me that. And so what I find a lot of times in organizations is we as leaders don't have a clear understanding of exactly what we want it to look like. And so we need to be able to articulate what a 10 looks like. And so a 10 looks like meeting these 5 functions and using your scorecard to say, this is the goal of what a 10 looks like. And then if people are meeting that, if I go back and I build the white box and it's mitered edges and it's perfect, then give me a 10, because I think that there is an epidemic in this world of people who say, I don't give 10s because there's always something more that can be improved. And if you're doing that, you're teaching your teammates that nothing they ever do is good enough if you are absolutely actually being clear with them. So it's a combination of us understanding and being clear, and then it's us rewarding, recognizing, and acknowledging people when they do actually do what we ask them to do. So that's just something I'm super passionate about, and thanks for giving me a moment to soapbox on you there. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to just think about people like rubber bands, right? There's something called the Pygmalion effect, and it says that basically what managers believe about themselves will subtly influence what they believe about their subordinates and what they expect of them and how they treat them. And so if you believe that they have the ability to develop and you have the ability to stimulate them to a higher level of performance and that much is expected of them, then they will feel more confident that their expectations are being met and that they can lead their people well. And so we want to set high expectations. We want to have a good, firm belief in our people. And if we don't have that, we may be setting the bar a little low. And so it's a fine balance here, because you have to give enough pressure that people can go far, but not so much pressure that they break, right? And so it's about getting that, what's enough pressure to really set high expectations within the constraints of what they can accomplish. And so don't push people too hard, they'll break, but just that right amount. And that's a little bit of a delicate dance, and it starts with having those quarterly conversations. And just one point about those quarterly conversations, they're not, hey, we're going to sit down and fill out a form and here's a performance review on you. Think about where you have your best conversations. Do you have those when you're sitting at an office desk getting grilled, or do you have those when you're out taking a walk, or when you're sitting and you're sharing a meal together? I don't know about you, but I have way better conversations over a meal than I do when I'm sitting across from my boss at a desk and being really worried that I'm being reviewed. So quarterly conversations, really important. Setting the right level of tension for people, very important. But the most important piece is that we have to have team health. In your annual, you should hear this every year, but you have to be reminded. Lencioni teaches us that not finance, not strategy, not technology. It's teamwork that gives us the ultimate competitive advantage, because it's so powerful and so rare. And so my question is your team healthy? Are they the right people? Are you having the right conversations with them? Are you using the tools that have been given to you in this toolbox to make sure that you have the right team, the right structure? You're able to delegate so everybody's functioning within their unique ability, so that you have this kind of power behind you and everything that you do in helping create the reality of the vision that you set on your vision traction organizer. So that is it for me. We're going to open it up for Q&A.
And I should be back. Tabitha, awesome job. Way to bring it.
Thanks.
You just made that people component come to life and brought all kinds of stuff. And boy, the Q&A is lively. So we've got extra time on Q&A. For everybody, whether you're familiar with EOS or it's your first exposure, there's always something to gain and new insights to have, especially when we go in depth on one of our components. And I hope you got at least one aha moment, that thing that came to your mind. I had some ahas, Tabitha, I can trust me on that one. The ultimate thing, we're looking to strengthen that people component in your business. And that's what we want to do. And, I think some of the Q&A, you've got some tough ones coming, Tabitha, so get ready.
Do it.
As we go through it, continue to post your questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. And for whatever, if we have some at the end that we can't, we will get back to you after. So Tabitha, you ready to buckle up and ready to go?
Let's do this.
Okay. So the first one, I hear this one a lot actually, and especially when we do implementation, which is who's responsible for the accountability chart, especially after the first line, after the integrator, including defining the roles and the metrics and the main functions of the seats. As you do that, if you can make sure that they understand when we do it on the leadership level, and then what happens on the levels below. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when the first time you do this,
let me stop you for 1 sec.
Yeah.
I forgot to tell you where that question came from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that came from Christina. I want to make sure I say her name right. Munch, I believe. So let's give Christina some answers and everybody else out there. Sorry about that, Tabitha.
No, you're good. Well, thank you for the question. So when you first do accountability chart, you just do it at the leadership team level. So the leaders are in the room and all working together to come up with what the right structure for the organization is. Now, sometimes there's a seat maybe that isn't in the room, or sometimes there's someone in the room that doesn't end up with a seat, and that's okay. But when you start out, do it with those 2 or 3, people who are really at that advisor level, who you think are going to be on your leadership team. That really will define the sales and marketing, the operations, the finance, the integrator, and the visionary. After that, you delegate each of the build out of the rest of that accountability chart to the people who are in the primary function. So the sales and marketing person would build out what the rest of their structure looks like. The operations person would build out what the rest of their structure looks like. And they're the ones ultimately that are, we're trying to create autonomy, right? And so we want them to lead and feel like I structured this the way that I need it so that all of my needs are covered. That may bring some conversation up, right? That may be, I think I need 7 people. And so they need to come back up. They need to talk to the integrator and say, can we really afford 7 people? Do we really need 7 people? But it's ultimately the leader in that seat's job and responsibility to build out the rest of that accountability chart.
Perfect. Awesome. So the next question comes from Brittany Summers, and she asks, we bring up a lot of people issues in our weekly level 10s and our quarterly meetings. The problem is we often feel that we're held hostage by the challenges of hiring right now, and we end up letting a lot of the people issues slide. The problem is that when we aren't holding people accountable. What advice do you have to address tough people issues when we desperately need people on staff to maintain our workload demands? It's a tough one.
Yeah. Okay. So I think if I'm understanding the question correctly, they're saying they know they don't have right people in the right seats.
Mhm.
And so they're continuing to battle issues. And my answer is you're going to continue to battle issues until you get the right people in the seats. Now, I know that every organization can't just rip off the Band-Aid and change, if all 4 people who are in your leadership seats aren't the right people, you can't just get rid of the whole leadership team all at one time. And so it really comes down to prioritizing the issue and getting clarity on is the wrong person a capacity issue or a wanted issue or a get it issue. If it's a get it issue, we probably have to find somebody else. If it's a wants it issue, it's a conversation of like, can you hang in there for me for a little bit longer? Here's the plan to get the right person in the right seat eventually. And if it's a capacity issue, a lot of times there's you can get additional training, or you can get a third party or an outsourced fractional resource to help shore that person up and train them and develop them a little bit. But yeah, that's hard when you have to fly the plane and patch the hole in the wing at the same time. But it's not uncommon. I have lots of teams that do it, and they do it successfully. But I would not ignore the issue. A lot of times we ignore the issue because it's uncomfortable, because we are avoiding conflict, because we don't want to have to train somebody else to do the job. And what I have found is that would you rather train them and have them do the job right, or not train them and have them stay, right? You don't want to not train them and have them stay. So spend the time, get them trained if that can fix the problem. If not, make sure you're addressing it head on and you're going, this person really is a challenge and a problem, and just don't stick your head in the sand on it, because you'll just continue to fumble over the same problems over and over again.
So the next question, you may have covered, I was busy typing away answers to the questions. So when you're doing the people analyzer, the question becomes about the bar. And the question was from James Sprayberry, what is your plus minus goal when doing the people analyzer? So if you could speak to the bar and that, and I don't, and review a little bit about that again.
Yeah, so I didn't mention the bar, but the idea is that once we establish what our core values are, we are going to do people analyzer exercise utilizing people that would be a key model in the organization. So think about the 2 or 3 people that if you could clone and make 100 of them, that you would want on your team. And then you're going to come up with your core values based on that. And then you're going to take everyone in the leadership team and you're going to assess them, and you're going to give them a plus minus, or a minus. As you do the leadership team, that should give you a pretty good indication of how many pluses and plus minus. So if you have a leadership team and they have all plus minuses, I wouldn't set the bar that it has to be all pluses, right? If you have a leadership team and it's all pluses, and maybe 1 plus minus, then the leadership team is having a discussion about what is the standard, what is the bar in order to work here to be on this team. And again, to say if somebody isn't there, then, or if you're getting a lot of minuses and you're doing that exercise, I would ask the question, do we have the right values?
Perfect. The next question comes from Corey Gropp, and he asks, the people analyzer is specific to the leadership using it. Why is it part of the quarterly conversation going all the way down through the hierarchy?
Say it again.
I'm going to so slowly. If the people analyzer is specific to the leadership using it, I think that's the first key part, because it's not just the leadership. Why is it part of the quarterly conversation going all the way down through the hierarchy? So I think Corey was a bit, maybe a little confused, and I want to try to clarify that for him.
Yeah. So People Analyzer can be used at any level. And maybe I need to clarify, when we say the leadership team, it's that top level of the marketing and sales, the operations, the integrator, the financial, and the visionary, right? So those top 5 roles. And it may be more at your organization, it may be less. But when I say leadership, there is then the mid-manager or that leader that sits in the next level down or that seat. They're also able to use People Analyzer. I've had teams that have done self-assessments and done People Analyzers on themselves. Just what I would not encourage is for like your peers to assess each other, and especially to assess each other anonymously, because that's how I've seen it used. Like, we're going to do 360-degree feedback, and we're going to get feedback from everyone. That goes against what EOS believes about being open and honest. So hopefully that clears that up.
Okay, so the next question comes from Rand Rederath, and he says, we are an EOS company. I've been here 3 years. We've just had our weekly L10 this morning. I have never experienced such a bloody process. I know that we have some different ideas concerning implementation of EOS, and I know leadership may have different view of implementation than I have come to understand. I'm also told that these difficult L10s are to be applauded. It's good, but it comes at a price. Can you please comment on the realities of soft issues concerning culture? By the way, I spent grad school studying culture and organizational design. So talk about culture and from a people perspective as it relates to this stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been in a couple of organizations where we've run EOS, and the level 10s are just an absolute nightmare. And like, those have always been because somebody's not sitting in the right seat. And sometimes that can even be the person who's the visionary or the leader. So I had one company that I worked with. The visionary was really just a consummate sales guy. Like, that's all he wanted to do was sell. And so he would constantly be coming in, and he would be just getting everybody else off of their game all the time. And we had to say, is this really the right seat for you? Because you're not leading, you're not doing culture, you're not making the hard conversations and decisions. And he said, no, I just want to be sitting in the sales seat, right? So sometimes it's poor leadership because they don't really GWC it. So leadership questions go all the way to the top, or those GWC questions go all the way to the top. I also find that when it's really dreadful to sit in the level 10 meetings is because we aren't following the process. And so that can be really frustrating. And that's why you have the rating at the end of the meeting. So if you're not being honest and saying that meeting was a 3, that was like, we did not follow the process. We didn't get through anything. We did, there was just a bunch of infighting. Like, all of those can be things that you can give feedback on. And my biggest frustration when I'm in level 10s is when we're IDSing that we aren't moving it to solve or the 7-day to do. And so I'm always asking the question, when I've heard the conversation spin and spin and spin, I always ask the question, what does done look like? Or what would solved look like? If you only had 7 days to move the needle on this, what's one thing that we could take action on in the next week? So it may be your ability to be a leader and to drive the meeting, to get some of the cadence stuff worked out, may make the meetings a little bit better. And then sometimes it's really just having the hard conversations. And so we talk about being the buffalo. Cows run with the storm. If there's a storm, buffaloes run into the storm. And so they get through the challenges a lot faster. So be the buffalo, be open, be honest. And if it's not the right fit for you, if you can't change the upper leadership, then go find an EOS company that does.
Love that answer. Well done. The next one comes from Bojan Bujak, and I just butchered his name, I can tell you. So I apologize to you out there, buddy. But a great question. EOS process tells us to do the accountability chart is one of the first things to be done, and it includes the people analyzer and GWC. How can we fully complete or do it if we haven't defined our core values yet? Core values come in day 2 or 3 as part of vision, the VB1 and VB2. Thanks.
Yeah. So we teach the foundational tools first, and accountability chart being one of those, because that really defines who gets to be who's in the meeting and who's not. Like you said, you don't do core values until later, but you don't need core values in order to do GWC. So the people analyzer shouldn't be getting taught until later, and that's usually after you've set the core values. Then you can come back in, and very early on we introduce GWC just to say, do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity to get you thinking about seats? But that is separate from the core values piece. That makes sense, Phil? I feel like I was...
No, I think
Okay.
I think it does. And look, I mean, the bottom line is with this, companies definitely get confused on this, and it's for certain, we want, when we're doing, as you said, when we're doing focus day, when we do it in the upfront, it's to build that accountability, to feel that accountability, and then we bring in the values second. So we, again, when the people analyzer, we're only using the first part of the people analyzer and seeing if we have the right people. And then in vision building, we see if we have them in the right seats. So
yeah, and the other thing I would add is usually in those first 3 sessions, we're doing what we call wet cement. It's like 80% there. So it may be that, early on, you don't know what those cultural values are. But as you start to solidify those, then you can start to have the conversation. So that's the other piece is those first 3 months sometimes can be like everything isn't totally hashed out. There's people that need time to process. And so that is by design in the way the system is laid out, that there's that 30 days in between for people to think, process, come back, answer, re-review, rinse and repeat.
So the next question is right in line with where we just came from. And this comes from Sonia, and I love this one. How do you handle a situation where someone is really good at their job, but doesn't want it anymore, and they are in no hurry to leave your company?
Interesting. Well, I'm glad that they're good at their job, but if they don't want it, are you starting to see signs that they're not doing the job well? And then I think we owe it to people to have the conversation with them about what is their unique ability, what is their EOS life, right? So doing what they love with people they love, being compensated well, making a huge difference in the world, and still having time for other passions. And so if they're not living that, you're cheating them a little bit, right? And so again, I think it's just have that conversation about, we want you to be where you're happy. We love that you're really good at your job, but if they're not performing because they don't want it, that's a different issue. And if they are performing and they just don't want it, they're just saying they don't want it, then it's what's your bigger purpose in life, and how can we help you get there?
And so totally different kind of question comes from Christina. And what she asks, Tabitha, is, and it's going to go to measurables. I'm pretty certain where she's going is where she's going to measurables. And it says, I believe it wasn't mentioned today, but could you please tell me more about everyone must have a number? Does it mean that a team member can be accountable for the team company metrics? Or are we talking about personal KPIs here that would contribute to the team or company metrics?
Yeah. So I get it to the point where every single person in the organization has a number, meaning they know what a great week looks like. So I have a team that is a bunch of electricians. They all drive vans, and they know what their van profitability is. They know how many materials they use, and they know how efficiently they ran their jobs that week, that we give them a report. And so they know if they had a great week or not. It's not a surprise to them. And so that's really what we mean when we talk about a measurable. So don't get stuck in is it a OKR or a KPI or like all the different terms. And it's even different than scorecard. We're not building a scorecard with everybody's name on it. We're starting to say, how do I know that that person had a great week? And so if they're in the sales role, it's like I had 5 meaningful lunch meetings, or I closed $30,000 in business this week. What does good look like? And they need to know that for their particular role.
And I'm going to give one, and I love doing this to really outline roles and measurables. And I think it really makes people think, and it makes it pretty practical. So there was one of my friends was hanging around with the CEO of a hospital, and they went in and they saw this person, Sally, who had a bucket and a mop, and you would think Sally's the janitor, right? And they said, Sally, what do you do? And she goes, I'm in charge of stopping infectious disease. And my buddy said, well, how do you do that? And by the way, the role in her seat was prevent infectious disease. And so how does she do? And she said, well, I do that because I have cleaning agents and things, and I do a really good job. And, if I'm doing that, people don't get sick. And he said, well, how do you know if you're doing a great job? And the measurable, and she goes, well, that's really easy. Every week I get a report saying how many people got sick on my floor. The measurable.
Yes, that's a great
So
example.
the role is the outcome, preventing infectious disease. The janitor, their job is to prevent people from getting sick. One of the other things was to keep the floor clean so that the doctors and nurses were happy. They were, just a really good, but again, that's how I like to think about, the roles and the measurables, and just wanted to add that one. Let me go back.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's fun. And so let's see. This one comes from Peter. By the way, we have 3 minutes left.
Okay.
So, hi, thank you for your insights, Tabitha. Isn't the development of structure predicated on the organization's key clients, best processes, and type of industry? Does EOS get deeper guide in the development with the client? So it's kind of a different kind of question.
Yeah. In all of the years of doing this work, this model of there's a sales and marketing function, operation function, a financial function, has applied as best I can tell. I have not been in anywhere it hasn't. And that's regardless of what their product mix is or what they're like. Now, every accountability chart does get customized, right? So you might say, well, we have different divisions. And so maybe we have 3 people in the operational seat and they're running different divisions, which would be predicated on product line or, those sorts of things. So I think if I'm answering the question correctly, the answer is, you have to understand your business. You have to understand the business strategy about who you're going after. But then after that, it's an internal conversation about what is that right structure, whether that's 2 or 3 operations people or 1 operations person. EOS doesn't make a recommendation one way or another there, just as long as you have those major functions covered.
And Tabitha, this question wasn't asked, but I'm going to ask it to you. Do we ever stop working the accountability chart?
No. It's always living and breathing and growing and changing. So it's something you should be looking at least quarterly.
So the next question, this will probably be our last one. Hang on one second. How can you set the accountability chart without creating the 1-year and 3-year plan?
How can you set the accountability chart without creating the 1-year and 3-year plan? Again, it comes down to the functions that the organization needs within your company. So you have a business objective, you have a reason that the company exists, and that is usually the first stab when you take a first go at it. Again, the wet cement concept of at the beginning, we're 80%, things may need to change. If we say, oh, our core focus is something totally different, then I would say, let's come back and let's re-review the accountability chart and tweak it.
Hey, and let me see if I can squeeze one more in. This one really does, I'm trying to see, what? Yeah, the last one. Where does the product management seat in a SaaS company, IT company go? Separate or under some other? Does it go under ops, finance? I love this one because it's probably going to be different for every company, right?
It is. It's different for every company. It depends on a couple of variables. So, I have I'm doing a huge project. It's all agile development. They have most of their product owners all sitting under their agile scrum master, right? So it just really depends on what is important about from a reporting hierarchy perspective, from a leadership ability, from how are you structuring your departments and your divisions. So yeah, you got to take all of that into consideration, but then it really is just custom.
So unfortunately, man, time just disappeared like that. We have to move to conclude. And I know there's some questions out there that haven't been answered, and I'm sure that all of you would like those questions answered. You can email Tabitha or myself, and if you look into chat, my email and my contact information is going to be on there. In a moment, you're going to see Tabitha's coming up on screen, but we would love to be able to provide answers to you and make sure that you have it. Thank you, Tabitha, for bringing that back up for me. So first, I wanted to thank the sponsors, and that I want to thank Colby and Trainio, and it was great. And if you can move, and sponsors make it all happen. So Tabitha, you just crushed it. Just awesome job, and you delivered a great session and amazing Q&A. Thank you. I want to remind everybody that they can again, I said it before, you can contact Tabitha, you can contact me if you have any further questions, or if you have any interest in working with an implementer. It's about the EOS experience, and we just want you to have the best experience that you can. If you can
don't forget, they can also reach out to support@eosworldwide.com.
Always, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if you can slide it to the next slide for me, please. So what are your next steps? So first, we always want you to read. And so the not so hidden why for running EOS. It's a mastery blog. We want you to pop out there and read that. That would be great. Watch the People Analyzer tool on the EOS Toolbox on the YouTube playlist, and subscribing to the Strong in Six podcast. That's great. And we have People Week episodes this week, and so listening to those podcasts, and they are amazing. And I don't know if you've seen them, Tabitha, but they are just really neat.
They're good.
And if you can forward this to our next slide. So for those of you that are really familiar with EOS, but you're not, you don't have an EOS implementer, that's okay. What we are going to be having on November 10th is something that's I think it's super cool, which is an EOS self-implementer workshop. So it's helping the self-implementing companies to just become better at self-implementing, to just ratchet the game up to become the best EOS company that they possibly can be. That's on November 10th. It's from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's virtual. There's the registration. Would love to do it. And if, again, you can, come back and look at this, or if you, need further information, just let us know. Okay. And if you can slide forward, this would be, I'm pretty certain this is our survey for today. So, click on this with your QR readers and let us know how we did. Keep it there for just a second. And go to the next slide.
That's it.
Oh, you know what? Okay, so let me back up. There is one other thing before we go there. This coming Friday, we don't have a slide for this one, but Friday on September 22nd, we invite you to join Kelly Knight and Mark O'Donnell and CJ Dubé for the People Book launch. So the People Book is coming out, which is like way cool, very exciting. The event's going to start at 11 a.m. and it's going to run till noon. It's going to be amazingly insightful. There's going to be lively discussion. You get to see Kelly, the integrator of EOS, and Mark O'Donnell, who we call him affectionately MOD. He's our visionary, and lots of great interplay. EOS staff is also going to be on the call, and they're going to be putting Jess just put up the how to register for the book launch session. So thank you, Jess, for that. And then Tabitha, if you can pull that, if you can go back to that one more time with that QR code, that is the code that we want everybody to click on. There you go. Bring up your phones, click on that code. And as always, we want you to rate Tabitha and I. And if you got everything you wanted out of today's session. And as we always say, we are going to end on time. I'm going to give you 30 seconds of your life back. And thank you very much for coming. And again, I'll just say thank you again for being part of the Strong in 6 event. Tabitha, thank you for bringing that A game, baby. Very good. And thank you, everybody, for taking the time out for being with us. And you have a great day, and we are right on time. Have a good one, everybody.